All right, let's talk what happens next. Houston Texans edition should be an interesting, honestly, a really interesting team to talk about. The Houston Texans are because there's certain things you can look at and say, well, they're in a great spot. And at the end of the day, I mean, you got the coach and the quarterback. You're in a pretty good spot regardless of how you feel about everything else. But still, let's talk about everything else. So first things first, you look at the cap space and the cash, and they look to be in a great situation. $74 million in cap space and $135 million in projected cash to spend. And again, to explain what projected cash to spend is, because this is usually a better predictor, what I'm doing is how much cash you could spend to get up to spending what the salary cap is. So they've only spent about a little over $100 million, and so using what the projected salary cap will be next year, that's how much they would have to get there. That's usually a much better indicator of how much teams are actually going to spend in free agency is cash as opposed to cap space. Every team in the NFL practically spends over the salary cap, usually 10 to 15 million. So it might be actually more than 135 million. They could legitimately go out and spend 150 million in free agency if they wanted. And again, that's in terms of like this year, what they'd be spending. So that's something to take a note on, is they could go out and they could add some pieces. This is kind of the bad news, though, is these are the free agents upcoming for their team, and well, maybe not necessarily a ton of star players, although there are a couple guys that I think you could at least say are significant pieces, if not superstars. But there's a lot of players that have come in, and again, if you do let them walk, you have to replace them. So, well, I would say out of these guys, really, I think all but four. And really, I would probably say all but three are replaceable. Still, you have to go out and replace them. So, the big ones to me, Dalton Schultz and Jonathan Grenard right at the top of the list. I think Schultz was a really nice piece for them. It was a weird move by Dallas to let him go, and I thought Ferguson did a good job in his absence, but I don't know. I think Schultz is really good, and I guess maybe Dallas just didn't want two tight ends. But if I'm Houston, I'm paying, if it's $11 million, which, again, that's the number next to each of these guys' names, is how much projected millions of dollars they're expected to get. This is either using Sports Track data, PFF data, or my own guess. Also, you see some dashes at the bottom. That's because, kind of more depth pieces there. I'm not going to go through each one, but, probably looking at 1 to 3 million for each of those guys. But, Devin Singletary is another guy who had a good year, and I could easily see them wanting to make sure he doesn't, go away in this situation. Sheldon Rankins is a player I like. Those players tend to get a bit overpaid, so I wouldn't hate letting him walk. If I'm Houston in that scenario for $10 million, maybe you could spend that better. That's just how I view it. Steven Nelson, I thought, was a really good corner for them. I'd want him back personally. And honestly, Noah Brown and Blake Cashman, a couple other guys that I would definitely want to see, come back. As I thought Noah Brown really had a nice season for them. I think Brown would probably want to stay with Houston given how that went. And, I think they would want to have him. So, again, some of the salary cap is going to go to keeping these guys like, offensive lineman George Fant, Michael Dieter. Again, you can move off of them if you want to, and I think they might. But again, then you have to pay the replacement, and then it's a bunch of depth pieces across the down the board, or at least guys who are viewed as depth pieces, right? Like a couple of these guys I actually think are pretty good. Like Tavier Thomas has had some moments, and so has Derek Barnett, but might be not necessarily breaking the bank. And these aren't even everyone. There are more players that I left off the list, but definitely guys to have to pay attention to. However, you look at the cost to re-sign everyone. So that would be $81 million. I'm going with everyone who I didn't list a number. I'm just going to average $2 million to sign each of them. Some would be a little less, some would be a little more. Again, we're not getting exact here, just getting kind of in the ballpark. So even if they re-signed everybody, they'd be only $7 million over the cap, and they would have $54 million in cash projected left over, and probably a little bit more than that. And not to mention, they could cut Robert Woods for $5 million, and they could cut Jimmy Ward for $4 million. I don't know about Ward. I would probably rather keep him, even though he did get banged up, because he is good when he's healthy. Robert Woods, maybe it is time to move off of him, save that $5 million, and spend it elsewhere. Don't just cut him to cut him, right? But if you can spend it elsewhere, well, then spend it elsewhere. That's kind of how I view it. But yeah, for the salary cap situation, again, every team spends over the cap. Don't worry too much about the negative. The -7 is actually a good number, as weird as that sounds. Usually you're going to look at like -10 to 15 is where most teams end up at in terms of like cash, you'll workshop it because obviously you have to be cap compliant, but you workshop it. So yeah, I mean, honestly, one, I don't think they're going to re-sign everybody, and two, I do think that they could go out and look at, pieces. And while there's plenty of things they could look at, offensive linemen, I was thinking, you know what? What about another receiver? Why not, right? Because your offense is already good, but, I thought that it was kind of an issue against Baltimore with their, again, Baltimore, great secondary, and they had a bunch of injuries. But hey, guys, you want to be able to have depth at that position. Who are some of the receivers they could go after? These are some of the top free agents on the market. And again, it's weird because how many of these guys will actually hit free agency, right? I'm sure you love a T. Higgins or Michael Pittman or a, Mike Evans. Obviously, that would be great. Will they hit the open market? If one of those three guys does, I think it's a good move to go out and get them. I do. Again, other guys, though, that are still good, Marquise Brown, Calvin Ridley. I think the Jaguars might actually have an option on Ridley, so that's another note. But again, Darnell Mooney, even Gabe Davis or Odell, that's not quite as exciting, but there's some options here to go out and get a talented receiver if that's how they want to help out their roster, and it certainly is something they can do. If they do let Fant walk, though, you could go after, again, what tackle do you maybe replace him with? I don't know, Mike Onwenu. I guess he's listed as Mike Onwenu. I've always called him Michael Onwenu for the Patriots, coming off of maybe a down season, but still a good season. And he's had a lot of good years. The Patriots love to let guys walk. He'd be someone who I'd be interested in as a potential replacement. And then some other players where it's like, I don't know, there's guys you could look at that can replace George Fant. But if you want to get an upgrade there, maybe try to help protect CJ Stroud, that could be a good move. Tyron Smith is a free agent, although he is, still just 33. You would think he's older, but that's someone who, again, there's things you could look at to try and help out this roster. Of course, there's the big names, the Chris Jones, Josh Allen, Brian Burns, that maybe you get really excited about. If you can add that to your defense, that would be fun. Not that they need that necessarily, but again, if Grenard walks, well, maybe you go and get Brian Burns, right? Again, doubt the Panthers are getting rid of Brian Burns, but maybe there's a trade opportunity for Brian Burns, right? Maybe they're willing to give up, they'll take a draft pick to do that, and maybe you make something happen that way. Same thing with Tampa Bay with Mike Evans. They might not want to let him go, might use the franchise tag over it, but maybe you then trade us, second or, maybe even, I don't know, you have a late first round pick. I wouldn't hate using that on, probably wouldn't do it on Evans because he's aging, but maybe somebody, whoever, take your pick to try and, get talent that way. Those are other options on the table here for Houston. So, and actually, I said late first round pick, but it's actually a little better because they traded away their first round pick. So ended up working out really well for them. As a whole, the Texans are a super fascinating team to watch, and anytime you can get a really good quarterback on a rookie deal, this is why it's so exciting, because you can sometimes have $100 million to spend, and if you spend it wisely, it's how you can win a Super Bowl in this window. Yes, they are in a Super Bowl window right now, but they got to make it matter, and they got to spend it wisely. That's just how it works. Yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.